Okay, I figured out why the font isn't working. So Ubuntu isn't working. Open Sans is actually working. So if you go and you look in the logo, you can see that Open Sans is working. It's working right up there. The reason Ubuntu wasn't working was because, I'm going to undo this. Over here in your link, the Ubuntu wasn't a capital letter. It needs to be capitalized. You'll see immediately, as soon as I capitalize it, it's working throughout the site now, right? All these are actually Ubuntu too. So that should be the only little issue if you just capitalize the Ubuntu. Now there are a couple other issues. One of the issues is you select things a couple times. And when you select things a couple times, it's very hard to figure out where you're styling something. So for example, you have something called body here, and then you also have another body here. You only want to select body once. So I would get rid of this one and then put all your styles in the other one. Same is true of your H1s, H2s, H3s, H4s. This is a much more advanced way of selecting them, so you can select them that way. But you want to make sure you kind of have an idea of where you are selecting things. There's also some issues within an actual selection. So like I said, with your body, you had two font families inside of it. Down here in your footer, it came to my attention to your footer, you have things like you have a width called auto, and then underneath you have this width that's also 1000. And so I'm assuming you probably want the width 1000. The other thing you used was top and left, and you don't want to use top and left yet. We're not at a place where you can use top and left. So top and left, by deleting top and left out of your footer and out of your service, you'll see that your footer becomes more what you were thinking it was going to look like. Right down here. There you go. So now it's starting to actually be the right size. Now also, your service, the class of service, you put class of service all the way down here. You gave these links class of service, and you told them to be 700. So each of the links themselves is 700. So if I get rid of that, you'll see that possibly it looks a little bit more like what you were thinking. Go down. Oh, and it also has the float left. So let's get rid of the float left. And padding in service, instead of padding being 10, you have to make sure you put pixels on it at all times. So padding has to have a pixel on it. Okay, so now everything's lining up the way that it should be lining up. What I would recommend is putting a background color in each and every piece, and then taking things out and previewing them and seeing what you actually need. Because a lot of this stuff I think you were just putting in there because you weren't sure why it wasn't moving or it wasn't doing the thing that it needed to do. But a lot of it you don't need. The position you need, the width you usually need, margins and padding, but no top or left. The top or left can be taken out. Okay, now let's go back to that one that I couldn't figure out. See if I can figure it out. Okay, so there's something called header. You made a header. We called it header. We figured it out over here. It's now div id equals header, and it has a UL inside of it, and a slash UL, and then a slash div. Let's see. Let's give it a width. Instead of a min, let's give it a width. Of 200 pixels. That should be fine because there's nothing else in here. There's max height, min height, but there's no width in there so far. So let's see what happens. Oh, no, I was thinking that's what's wrong with it. Now it has a width, but it's not floating the way that you wanted it to float. So let's see why it's not floating the way you wanted it to float. Margin, padding, text align, color, position relative. Oh, I think if you just put in float right, it'll go back to its other place position. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. It's over on this side. Now the question is, why is the background color that color? Oh, this is your background color. So you have it. It is actually doing the thing that you want it to do now. Now it's over here, it's a box, and it's floating right. Okay, so that should fix all of your problems on your page. If you have more problems, let me know. I'll make another video for you tomorrow. Hopefully I've cleared up some issues. I think the biggest issue for you is that you're over coding. And so only put in the code that you think you need and test it in a browser immediately. And then if it doesn't do what you want, get rid of it because you have a lot of extra code here and you don't need all of it. And the more code you have, the more, it's kind of like putting ingredients into soup. If you can't figure out why it's too salty and you have 50 million ingredients, it's very hard to pinpoint one, but if you only have 10, it's very easy to figure out which one is the culprit. The same thing is true of code. If you have 50 million pieces of code, it's very hard to pinpoint what's going on. So the biggest, most important piece of code is that background color so you can see what's happening and whether you're moving it around and whether it's in the right place. And also just getting rid of some of the extra pieces of code that you don't actually need. Okay, good luck. Let me know if you have any more questions.